Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli, and welcome back to an episode of the Hand of the Day from Poker After Dark, where we are in a 100, 200 cash game, and we got a 400 and 800 straddle. One of the biggest games, one of the biggest pots coming up right here. Stay tuned.
Hand of the Day.
This game started off as 100, 200, but as it usually is with these high-stakes TV games, kicked up quite quickly, and there's been some straddles going on here. So we have a 400 straddle from Cantu under the gun, and a double straddle from Alan Keating in second position. Tilly finds herself under the gun with pocket sixes and opts to make it 3,000. A little bit on the bigger side, but I think you're going to want to be going 4 or maybe 5x with two straddles and all this dead money, especially raising under the gun. You're representing a lot of strength, raising from earlier position. So I think a bigger size makes some sense here. Sixes is a fine hand to open. Rob Yong in second position, or to her left, not second, I guess second position technically with the blinds, with the 7-4 suited. Rob Yong, founder of Dusk Till Dawn Poker and regular high-stakes player on the scene. Has 7-4 suited. He's been known to get in there and gamble and play a little loose, so I think this is within his wheelhouse and playing style. But in a double straddled pot in second position, GTO says to play a little bit tighter here, so this is, the book says fold in this spot. And I think, to call here, I'd want to have something like 9-10 suited, especially in a table with Tom Dwan, Cantu, Alan Keating, all behind you, very loose, aggressive, good players, liable to 3-bet with a wide range of hands. I'm going to play extra tight here in this spot because I want to realize my equity and see the flop. He calls with 7-4 suited over to Cantu in the straddle, in the 400 straddle, who has Jack-10 suited. And here, you want to play this hand, but you're out of position against the big blind, Alan Keating, who's very loose, very aggressive, and also against Tilly and Yong, who are also loose and aggressive. So I'd like to see this hand probably played as a 3-bet. I think it plays pretty well as a 3-bet. It keeps your range wider and balanced, and you want to have some bluffs, and Jack-10 suited is a great bluff. As for sizing, I'd like to see this be pretty big here, 15,000, 20,000, because you're out of position against the field. They're deep, they're loose. So I think this hand plays overall a little bit better as a 3-bet. I still think it's profitable to call here in a loose, crazy game like this, but I like 3-betting slightly better. Cantu calls over to Keating in the big blind, who I think has a pretty clear 3-bet here. There's so much dead money in there. The only person he's really worried about is Tilly under the gun. Tilly's looser style as well. But even still, even if she played, very normal GTO style, I still think Ace-Queen is a 3-bet. It doesn't play that well in a 4-way pot. It plays much better heads up with the lead in this hand. So I love Ace-Queen as a 3-bet here from Alan Keating. Keating also, I've played a lot of high-stakes poker with him over the years in games like Bobby's Room or wherever, and he's very loose, very aggressive, very tough to play against. Makes a lot of unconventional plays, very good player, very tricky. You definitely don't want him on your left. So I think this 3-bet here plays into his style. He's going to be taking more aggressive lines, even in spots where it could kind of go either way, and I think that's great for a player like him. It's what makes him so tough. So I'd like to see a little bit bigger on the size here. He opts for 15,000. I think 20,000 is a little bit better. I think 15,000 is good if you're maybe heads up or against maybe one other caller, but you're raising out of the big blind, so your range is technically narrower. Usually people just call out of the big blind, and you're against 3 other players, and you don't want Tilly to call. Then Rob is going to call. Then Cantu's going to call, and suddenly you're still in a 4-way pot with Ace-Queen. So I'd like to narrow the field, go 20K and get it heads up. As played, he makes it 15K. Tilly gets out of the way with sixes, which I think you could make a case for calling. If she calls with sixes, she knows Rob's going to call. She knows Cantu's going to call. You can go a 4-way pot with sixes. If you flop a set, you bust someone. I mean, if they all call, you're getting a good price on your call pre-flop. If you flop a set, you could recoup that money. I wouldn't mind seeing sixes played as a call here if she's deep enough and wants to gamble. She gets out of the way, and Yong, I think, is tempting to call here. I mean, he's in position. Of course, he doesn't have a great hand, but I honestly like calling a 3-bet. He's only calling 12K. The pot's 25K or so. He's getting a good price. He could take this pot in position, realize his equity, and actually guaranteed to have position in the hand. So his original call pre-flop is a little bit more questionable because he might not see the flop. He might not play in position. But now he's definitely going to see the flop if he calls, and he's definitely going to play in position. And he's going to be heads up probably. So I actually like this call from Yong with the 7-4 after he calls the original open. So it's kind of ironic, but poker is weird like that. He calls over to Cantu, who surprisingly gets out of the way. I would expect Cantu with a hand like Jack-10 suited and his playing style to opt for a call here. It does suck to play out of position against two people. You flop top pair, you're in a lot of difficult spots. I would expect him to call. I'm okay with folding. I'm okay with calling here as well. But I guess this goes back to my original point, which is why I like 3-betting more in the beginning. You get the big blind out of the pot. You play the hand with control. He folds. Let's go heads up to the flop. All right, we got an exciting hand ahead of us, but first, if you're new to this channel, Conscious Poker is the best place to take your poker game to the next level, with new hand reviews coming out on a weekly basis, Ask Alec videos where you can ask me anything and I answer them here in videos for you. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss another video, so you're always the first to know when awesome content comes your way. Now let's jump back into the hand. The pot of 35,000, the flop comes down queen 5-4 rainbow, and Alan here has a super clear, like slam dunk bet, right? He has, first of all, what's called a range advantage, and that simply means that his hand, his range of hands, like the types of hands he can have playing the hand this way, are stronger than the types of hands that Rob Yong could have, right? He's the original re-raiser pre-flop, so this board favors him. Right? If you think about kids, the way I always like to talk about this when I'm coaching it with my clients is, remember when you were a kid and you were on the teeter-totter, that little thing that you go up and down and up and down and up and down. Anytime you're the short, fat kid and you're the guy that's going down, you have what's called leverage. So the teeter-totter is in your favor. And anytime the teeter-totter is in your favor in poker, you want to bet. So this situation favors Alan Keating. So he should be betting here with ace queen. He should just be always betting this flop because this situation favors his range. So I like his decision to bet here. 20K is a good size. He's deep. He wants to make a big bet. I don't think he wants to make like a 14K bet like you'd see in a tournament maybe when stacks are shallower, because he doesn't necessarily always want to get floated here. I think you want to make it difficult for your opponent to float. You want to start applying pressure right away. You want to start building a pot right away. You want to cut down on his implied odds right away. So when you're deep stack like this in a cash game, you got to vary your bet sizes proportionally to the situation. I love his bet of 20,000. It sets it up for a multi-street bet and building a big pot. Over to Rob Yong, who I think has a very clear call. He has bottom pair, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, could have the best hand. Even if he doesn't have the best hand, he has plenty of equity. He could pick up a lot of equity on a club, on a 6, on an 8, on a 3. Of course, he can make the best hand on a 7 or on a 4. So he has to call here, least of all because he has a lot of equity, but he might have the best hand, but he could definitely improve as well. He calls. Let's go to the turn. With a pot of 76K, the turn comes down to deuce of clubs. And Alan Keating has a pretty big stack here, about 200,000 left. So a stack to pot ratio of 2.5 to 1. And he has to bet again, right? Now the turn brings a flush draw. It brings a straight draw. And he wants to get value from hands like 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, maybe 10s, any 5x type hand, any ace high type hand, any potential backdoor flush draw, or obviously any queen. So he has a slam dunk bet. But the question is, how much?
Alan did pick up a wheel draw here.
Come on. All in.
And he's moving all in for 195,000.
This is what makes Alan Keating so difficult to play against. I remember back in the days of playing in Bobby's room with him, and it is frustrating having this guy at the table because you might just find yourself in 1,000 big blind pot all of a sudden because he's capable of making these plays that nobody else is. And it's really tough to know what types of hands he's going to have. Like, what does this bet mean? When do you ever see a 2.5 pot jam on the turn? What do we make of it? So let's break this down a little bit here. First of all, we have to think about what types of hands Alan is doing this with overall, right? First off, I think he could have hands for value. Hands like ace queen, kings, aces. He's probably not going to have worse queens like king queen, just because what if his opponent has ace queen? I think it's too thin to make that big of a bet. He could also have some bluffs, right? He can have some like flush draws, like just ace 10 of clubs. Maybe he could even have some stone bluffs, like ace king. Picks up a backdoor straight draw, has 2 overs. Maybe he thinks his opponent has 7s, wants him to fold. Could be a good bet. He could have some kings and aces, could have some pocket queens for a set. He might just have some random bluffs too. Not random bluffs, but like jack 10 of clubs. Just like turn to flush draw, want my opponent to fold, have decent removal on a queen. Like if you have king jack of clubs, you block some king queens, block some king jacks, some queen jacks, go for it. So I could see why he wants to make this play here with his range. Like overall, we're talking from a theory standpoint, why he would want to bet big in this spot. 2.5x the pot stretches the limit of what is big. I could see going like, I think the default line here is just to bet like 60K and then jam the river, make this a 3-street game. And I would really actually like an overbet here if you're like 110K, you know, like a little bit bigger than the pot where like any bet on the turn is committing. So you might as well just jam. You don't want to bet like 50K on the turn, then the pot's like 175K and you leave yourself with 40K behind. It's like, what's the point of that? Just jam it in. So I could get behind the logic here, but the stack size is just very deep to make this play. Typically when you make these plays, you're in a spot where you have a stack to pot ratio of about 1.5 to 1. And this is a concept I cover a lot more in Mastering Poker Math, a course that is featured in the Conscious Poker membership. But it sort of explains these stack to pot ratios and how to navigate these various situations and what bet sizing you should be choosing in these spots. So I don't hate this bet here. The speed with which Yong called the flop and his mannerisms, it makes me think ace queen is always, pretty much always the best hand. Even without a live read, what hands beat you? Like ace 3 suited? I mean, there's like 3 combos of that. You know, pocket 5s, pocket 4s. That's really it. I mean, ace queen is pretty much always the best hand here. The question I just have here in Alan's spot is what's the best way to get the most value? And that's what I would be thinking here. And a lot of this depends on what level your opponent is on. So throw the game theory aside. What is Yong gonna think about your bet? Who is your opponent? And what level are they on? And your goal, my friend, is not to just like GTO this thing, but to play one level higher than your opponents. So if your large bet looks strong, don't make it because they're never going to call you. If your large bet looks to them weak, like if this bet looks like ace king or a bluff, make it. You're going to get hero called. So I like this bet from Alan because I know that he's on a high level. I know he knows what level Rob is on or what level he thinks he's on, and he's trying to make his hand look like the opposite of what it is. And that is how you make money in poker. You make money in poker by your hand looking to your opponent like the opposite of what it is, right? So I actually really like this bet. I know it's unconventional. I know it's not by the book. I know it's street poker, but this is the shit that I love to see. So I like this bet from Alan. Over to Yong, who's in a very tough spot. This is not a situation where his opponent always has the nuts. And in fact, so few people are capable of betting this big with like made types of hands that I think it actually looks kind of bluffy. If you remember the video I did a week or so back with Cantu where he made this super big overbet bluff against Randall Emmett, he actually didn't have it because these large bets here are sometimes these semi-bluffs where people want you to fold, so they bet extra big. So from Yong's point of view, with his hand here, I could see how he would want to get behind a call. But what do you do in Yong's spot? How do you solve these situations? Well, this is a spot where I actually really like to go to the math and see what the numbers say because they never lie. Again, this is something I talk a lot more about in the membership where I actually break these down in hand reviews and show you exactly how to do this, my study process, the same one I go through in the lab. If you want more from that, there's a free trial available. Simply click the link below and you can get immediate access. But for now, this is what I do. You can see this screenshot here. I basically give my opponent a range of hands. What types of hands are they going to go all in with? And then I calculate my equity. You can see here with 7-4 clubs, if you give Alan, Keating, a balanced range, some bluffs and some value hands, you have about 40% equity. Now, this range that Alan has is speculative. I understand it's not exact. There could be hands that are in his range or not in his range, but your equity is about 40%. So what do? Well, you want to weigh your equity against your break-even point. You want to look at the pot odds you're getting and determine what price you need to justify calling. Well, the pot is 270K, you're calling 200K, so you need to be right about 40% of the time. So this call against the range of hands that Alan could have is about break even. So in a spot like this, I would use live reads, what I know about my opponent, and try and figure out a way to maybe gain some sort of read or feel or edge one way or another. And if I didn't have any of that, I would probably just fold, because if it's break even and you're risking 200K, which is whatever, 1,000 big blinds in this game, I'm probably not going to put that in on a break even spot. If I did have a 5 or 7% edge, 10% edge, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to pass up an edge if I have it. But if it's break even, there's probably better spots for your money. Now, again, this is largely dependent on what we think Alan has. If he's bluffing with hands that I didn't include in this analysis, like ace-king offsuit, then of course your equity goes up, meaning this is an even better call. One thing I'd like to note here is you can see in this second screenshot, if you have a hand like king-queen, your equity is actually lower. And why is that? Right? It seems counterintuitive. People might be like, why would you call here with bottom pair? Or second bottom pair? It's ridiculous. But if you want to look at your equity, not the strength of your hand, right? So king queen here actually has a lot less equity. It's about 30% equity instead of 40%. And the reason being, when you're behind with king queen against ace queen or kings or aces, you're screwed. But when you're behind with 7-4 of clubs, you have a lot of outs. You can hit a club, a 7, a 4. Your outs are all live. Also, with 7-4 of clubs, you block some of your opponent's flush draws. So when your opponent has a flush draw, he's less likely to hit as well. So I actually like calling with 7-4 here more than I like calling with a hand like king-queen, even though king-queen is higher up in your range and it is an overall stronger hand. So crazy spot, impossible sort of situation here, not one you see all the time. Let's take a look, see what happens.
Well, to be fair.
Let's go.
Oh my.
I think ace kings as well.
Ace queen.
Yong
King queen or ace queen. That's what
makes
I
the
thought.
call, has the 14 outs, and we have ourselves a $467,000 pot.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh. No. Trip 4s on the river for Rob Yong,
How does Rob
who felts Alan Keating.
You think I'm playing to pass pair? You think I'm playing poker to pass pairs and flush draws? Phil?
I got it in your save the turn. Flush draw. I missed it.
What a hand, what a river. That is so sick. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Well, how would you have played this if you're Alan? Would you have the balls to call here if you're Rob Yong? Leave your thoughts in the comment below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.